Speaking of Courage Podcast, what?
It's been a long time.
It's been a while, but we are back.
Pulled the hat and the mannequin out of storage.
Chase finally got the motivation to bring it back.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So hopefully, if you guys like it, if you guys watch, we'll get some comments. We'll keep it going. We'll kind of play it by ear. So
maybe instead of once a week, we'll do once a month.
Yeah, I'm thinking once a month.
Yeah.
If we can get through the growing pains, though.
Yeah.
Our camera might fall over today.
Yeah.
But we'll
We're trying to remember how to record.
Yeah, exactly. Remember how we did it. We might veer off on a complete tangent, but we're trying.
Yeah,
so we'll
exactly.
see. So bear with us on these this first one at least.
What's new with you, dude?
Nah, nothing. Same old stuff, man.
Yeah?
We look like we're sponsored by Dixon right now.
Yeah, that would help.
I just noticed your hat. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if it was this one, but
It's about all I have.
yeah.
So where are we headed today?
What do you think, Donnie?
Well, now that we've been gone for so long, I'm going to say Iraq. No,
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
that's what I was curious if you still had it in you.
Oh. World War II?
How about I give you the name?
Yeah.
All right, so today we're going to do Jimmy Stewart. Have you ever heard the name Jimmy
Yeah,
Stewart?
I've heard the name. It's an
All right.
actor, right?
Okay, so that's kind of what most people think of. So we're actually doing Vietnam.
Okay, that was gonna be my first guess.
First Cav Vietnam, but
Yeah.
Jimmy Stewart is actually a Medal of Honor recipient that we're going to be profiling today. But Jimmy Stewart's the famous actor,
Right.
So most of the time when you hear Jimmy Stewart, you think of Jimmy Stewart, the actor from It's a Wonderful Life and a lot of other movies. Awesome actor, great American.
Not
he
the
was
same guy.
actually not the same guy.
Oh, okay.
Jimmy Stewart was actually, a lot of people don't realize this. He was in the 8th Air Force and flew 20 combat missions over Germany in World War II.
The real
Jimmy Stewart.
No,
the
they're both
actor.
real, but
Yeah.
the actor.
The actor. He enlisted at the height of his career. Prior to Pearl Harbor, he joined the Army as a private, became an officer, flew combat missions, stayed in, and ended up being a brigadier general, which is awesome. But the problem is Jimmy Stewart, the Medal of Honor recipient, if you Google his name, he's going to be about 25th down on that.
So
Google
people
search.
got it. Do you think people got it misconstrued?
No,
Or
no,
just
not at
the
all.
Medal
They
of
just-
Honor guy got buried?
The Medal of Honor guy is buried. He's completely overshadowed. But he's first Cav. He has an awesome story. He's one of my favorite Medal of Honor
Yeah.
recipients. So hopefully by doing this show today, we can get his name out there.
Damn, so there was a
little
lot
bit
of
more.
Hollywood actors, and
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on the Hollywood.
so that makes
actors
sense
that
then.
went
Why
and fought.
it was so much more patriotic back then.
Yeah.
And Hollywood took it real serious and
The
stuff.
whole country did in
Yeah.
World War II.
Okay,
But
cool.
today we're doing Vietnam, which is
Yeah.
a very different story.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy G. Stewart. His German name or his middle name is very German. It's I believe it's spelled Goethel, which looks like Goethe.
Yeah.
It might be Goethe, like Gertz. I'm not sure. Forget my German pronunciation. If anybody out there knows how to pronounce it,
Yeah.
But I'm going to call him Jimmy Stewart or Jimmy G. Stewart. 'Cause
Jimmy
I'm not
G
even gonna
sounds
mess with
cool.
it. Jimmy G. It works for me. His name's actually Jimmy too, not like Jim or anything.
Yeah. Oh, it's actually on his birth certificate as Jimmy.
As far as I understand,
Nice.
yeah. So, Jimmy Stewart's from West Virginia. He was born on Christmas Day, December 25th, 1942.
Christmas baby.
Yeah, he's one of those. So his mother was Ethel Stewart, and his dad was Alfred Roland Stitt. So there's a little bit of a gap in the record. He was born in 42, and from what I found, it looks like his dad was in the Army from 1943 to 1945. I found an enlistment record. But he ends up taking his mom's name, and his parents separate at some time when he's very, very young. So his dad, I don't know if he was in his life or if he was they just separated for other reasons, but he ends up using his mom's name, Stewart, and then his mom remarries in 1944, which is shortly after he's born. So he's only...
Is divorce at this divorce is pretty rare at this point, right?
I wouldn't say rare, but it's very looked down
Down,
on, and
yeah,
it's hushed
frowned.
up a lot a bit,
Yeah.
and they would, try to hide it or go around things, but it's not going to be
You might get
the
made
norm.
fun of if you came from a broken home.
I imagine that he was, like I said, less than 2 years old or around 2 years old. He probably just was raised as if his
Stepdad was his real dad.
And his dad was Delmar James Logan, who raised him, and then his stepdad and mother had 2 more children, so another brother and a sister. So they all lived together, and he had a fairly good life from what we understand. So I imagine it wasn't that big of a deal in the home because he wasn't, 10 years old coming into this. He was a baby, so he probably knew that.
Adapted.
Knew James as his whole life,
Okay.
Being born during World War II, that means you're growing up in that post-war era. We've mentioned it on the show before. This is one of those interesting times because when we look back on it, it's riding your bikes through the neighborhood, growing up in the 50s, great music, great cars. It's really a great time to be alive. This is one of the biggest post-war economic booms we've ever had. America's thriving, essentially, right? These kids back home, they have freedom. Their parents, for the first time, are being able to buy their own homes, live out in the suburbs, have that good, family, the
Wonder
nuclear
Years.
family, the Wonder Years. That's exactly what it is. But in the background, it's the Cold War. We're on the brink of war with the Soviet Union. So every day, there's going to be that threat growing up. It's kind of an odd time, you know?
Is this where all the nuclear testing was happening?
Exactly, yeah. So all the nuclear tests are going on. The Cuban Missile Crisis is going to be in the
You can
early
imagine
60s.
the rumors and everything. Because you've
kids-
seen the videos of the tests and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
That's some horrific stuff.
Right, I mean, that's where Area 51 and everything
and I'm sure
comes
videos
from.
weren't out at that time, but I mean, imagine the rumors that came from people that witnessed that
The
stuff.
less information, the more crazy
Yes.
stories you're going to get.
That's where comic books probably came from. A lot of these.
Well, that's
the
where
nuclear fallout and all that.
all the sci-fi movies of the 50s,
Yeah.
that's partially because of all the nuclear fallout, but that's also a metaphor for communism and the Red Scare, the aliens and the
okay.
Soviets. So all that stuff's going on. So that's going to be going on in the background. Stewart and his family, it seems like they moved around a bit because he was born in West Virginia, bit of a poor area.
Yeah.
Doing research for this, I found that West Virginia had the highest death rate per capita in Vietnam than any other state, probably because it's small, but probably because it's so poor. A lot of these guys were going off to fight. So
Wow.
he's kind of from that area, but he actually ended up going to high school in Ohio, and he graduated in 1960. As soon as he graduated, he ended up joining the Army. So when he enlisted from Ashland, Kentucky. So he's been West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky. So he's kind of moving around that area a little bit.
Yeah.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. You just here or what?
Yeah, just a little fuzzy.
Okay, sorry. So he goes in, it's 1960, he's 18 years old, and he's going to be joining the Army. Now, 1960 is a weird time to join the Army, right?
Yeah.
He's not drafted. The war in Korea is over. The war in Vietnam has not started to heat up yet. The average American in 1960 had never heard of Vietnam, couldn't say Vietnam, didn't know anything about it or why it was
It
important.
wasn't even on the horizon.
Not
at this
even
point.
on the horizon. Yeah, not at all. Especially for a kid from Ohio, Kentucky, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, it wasn't on the blip. So joining the Army, you're joining essentially a peacetime army or an occupation army. So he's going to go to basic training. He's going to become an infantryman. And he's going to end up being stationed in Germany, which is very similar. It's almost like a small version of what's going on in the country. The army in Germany in the 1960s, it's very spit and polish. It's very, very, you have to be strapped. You have to be on your game. But they're going out and partying. They're having fun. They're having a great time, right?
There's nothing crazy going on.
They're meeting German women. They're drinking in the pubs. They're experiencing this life. This kid from Kentucky and Ohio, I'm going to just stick with Ohio essentially because that's where he went to high school. This kid from Ohio is now seeing these different cultures. You can take the train. You can go all over the country. You can go visit France. You can go
Dude,
visit
it's got to
the
be
Netherlands.
a culture shock.
But on the flip side, you're facing down the Soviet Union, right? So at any time, the Soviets could go to war. They could overrun, and you're going to be on that front line. So it's a weird dynamic. It's a weird kind of a place to be. When they're in the field, they're going to take it very seriously because you could be that front line if the Soviets.
And your
are second
instructors
place.
and stuff are World War II vets,
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Some hardened veterans.
There's Medal of Honor recipients filtered through the Army that are just, at duty assignments. Your captain might have earned a Medal of Honor. Your major might have been a POW on Bataan. These guys are just around. And Korean War vets even more so because it's 7 years after.
And they got to be a hardened, because we grew up with the Vietnam vet people, you know what I mean? And they were hard asses. Mm-hmm. Now, the World War II, probably similar, right?
You could have an NCO that landed on Normandy and then
my
fought
gosh,
through
could you
Korea, and now
imagine?
he's screaming at you to shine your
Right.
boots, So it's work hard, play hard.
Probably a reverence that they had for him, too, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
'Cause-
If you care about the Army, if you're one of those guys that
and
takes
World War
pride in
II
it,
was like
that's always that shining star. So these are
Yeah.
going to be guys you looked up to. And a lot of these kids, Jimmy, when he was younger, they're going to be idolizing these guys. So now they're serving with these guys, essentially.
that's gotta be
So
cool.
that's going to be a bit. But like I said, work hard, play hard. So when they're off, they're partying in the pubs, they're traveling around. And Stewart he meets a German woman, Gertrude Wilsbach, who he ends up marrying. So he ends up marrying a German citizen, which is actually fairly common. There's a lot of those.
This is what happened with my grandfather.
Yeah, and Kyle's grandpa and grandma too. That's why Kyle's family is half German, half Mexican.
Yep.
Our buddy.
My grandmother was straight from Germany, man.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that. I don't think I knew that.
100% German.
Yeah, it was fairly common because soldiers are intermingling. They're to the German women or whichever country we're in. You're looking at these soldiers that are at the peak of their physical fitness. They're exciting, they're adventurous, and an American soldier is getting good pay. They don't have a lot of bills, so they're going to have money in their pockets. You almost feel bad for the German guys.
I always wondered that about my grandmother, like how she was able to get over here with my grandfather.
Yeah,
she was so young.
It's very easy if they get married to get them. It's a little harder now.
I just mean for the family dynamic.
Oh yeah, It's an interesting thing, but yeah, Stewart ended up meeting and falling in love with his wife, and they ended up having 2 boys. So they had 2 children, Robert and John Stewart.
Okay.
So Stewart was what we would call a lifer. If you guys weren't in the Army, there's people like me who do one enlistment and get out. A lot of guys, you bitch the whole time you're in, and complain about how the Army's stupid. And then there's the lifers, the guys that as soon as they're in or within a couple years, they're going the full haul. They're going to do their 20 years.
Yeah.
Because you do enlistments, every 3 years, every 5 years or whatever. Stewart's one of those guys right off. I'm going to re-enlist, and I'm going to keep this going. This is my career, so I need to take this serious. Versus a guy that's like, I only got 3 years. Who cares if I get busted down in rank or if I don't pay attention?
Yeah.
So Stewart's a lifer, so that means he's going to take everything seriously. And everybody that knew him described him as a career soldier, right? Just a serious guy. I'm sure he was a fun guy, but he was very, very
not messing around,
down to business. His boots are going to be shined. He's going to be paying attention to those squad drills. He's going to be doing all those things. He's thriving in this post-war Army, this post-Korea, pre-Vietnam. Like I said, it was tough, but it was good times too. The Army, even today, it's what you make of it. So while he was over there enjoying these events in Europe, though, and we're worried about the Soviets, what ended up happening was the situation in Vietnam started to heat up, right? Which is a little bit more to get into than we're going to get into here. But Vietnam had been brewing for a long period of time. So the situation in Vietnam was developing after the French pulled out and we start to intervene ourselves. So there's this small country in Indochina. The events there are shaping his life, and he doesn't even know that that's going on. So meanwhile, he's going to end up re-enlisting, and he's going to get assigned to the 1st Cavalry Division, which is the greatest fighting force in the history of the world, as I always like to say. I should have worn my jacket, but I forgot. It's been too long.
I see it everywhere now.
Yeah. Good.
The 1st Cav horse.
You can recognize what it is. So he ends up getting assigned to the 1st Cavalry Division. And the 1st Cavalry Division was activated as the 1st Army Air Mobile Division on July 1st, 1965. And Stewart's going to be assigned to Bravo Company, 2nd Squadron, 12th Cavalry Regiment. Within 90 days of becoming the 1st Army Air Mobile Division, the 1st team was back in Vietnam, back in combat, fully committed, the first fully committed division to be sent to the Vietnam War.
Okay.
We've talked about air mobile before, but if you don't know what air mobile is, that's essentially what you see in all the Vietnam movies. The helicopters are going to load up with the guys. They're going to go out, and they're going to hover low. Everybody's going to jump off, and you're going to set up whatever your combat missions are from there. Sounds simple, right? It sounds like, oh, of course, that's what they're doing. But you contrast that with previous wars where your front line is where the trucks are, where the tanks are, where the men are.
Is yours.
Everything behind you is yours. Everything in front of you is the enemy. In Vietnam, you can hopscotch all over the battlefield because
that had
they
to
can
be
take
odd,
these helicopters. Man. Well, it has an advantage.
Very isolating feeling, though.
You can get there quickly. You can get on top of the enemy, but you are isolated. And only so many people can fit in those birds, right?
Yeah.
So if you get dropped off and you get ambushed, like they did at the Ai Drang, the next wave, you're alone until they come in. And if the landing zone gets cut off or they can't come in, then you're trapped and you're isolated by the enemy. So it has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. But it's going to be kind of the hallmark of the Vietnam War, and that's why the 1st Cav was so big in the Vietnam movies and everything like that, because they prioritize that. They're the ones that developed that combat. And that's where Jimmy Stewart's going to be. Because this is early in the war, the 1st Cavalry Division had to mobilize all their equipment, put it on ships, and take it over there. Later in the war, you're going to see guys coming over as individual augmentees, getting assigned to the units. The 1st Cav's coming over by ship. They're bringing all their stuff. They have to hack a base out of the wilderness, essentially, right? So it's a very, very different mission than you're going to see with a lot of guys that come into the war later.
So they get dropped in and then make a base.
Yeah, they're
wherever
gonna
they get dropped in.
I mean, we had friendly support, in the South, but they're gonna go designate their landing zones and their places, and they're gonna have to hack them out of the wilderness, because if you come to Vietnam in 1968 or 1969, you're gonna get assigned to a base that's already been there. When you come in 1965, we don't have the facilities for these major division operations.
The LZ.
Yeah, exactly. LZs are a little smaller, but these big base camps.
Yeah.
And this was so new. The 1st Cav, they even had to dye their white undershirts. They hadn't been issued green undershirts, so they're dyeing their white undershirts. They're using magic marker to darken the white on their name tapes, on their old stuff, because it's like a transition period of that old Army into the new. So prior to their year-long deployment, Stewart's going to have a short leave, and he's going to have to say goodbye to his wife and kids, right? They're back in the United States. And you can imagine what this is like for her. She's just been married.
Is he understanding the danger ahead?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, any combat soldier, Vietnam was not what it was yet. We didn't know, but if a whole division's getting deployed to a combat area, something's going on, and it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Now, his poor wife is a German citizen. She's lived in Germany her whole life. Now she's in the United States, Fort Benning, I believe, and she's got 2 young boys in a foreign country that she's never been to.
And she's probably lived through chaos already, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because she's I believe she's a little bit older than him, so she would have been growing up with the end of the war and seeing the destruction and of everything after that. But can you imagine being a woman who doesn't even know the culture? Your husband's away, risking his life.
This is my grandmother,
bro.
My grandmother came here when she was 18 with my grandfather, dude, and he was her lifeline.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And there's that risk that he's not coming home.
There was nobody else except her kids. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I relate to this one for sure.
Yeah, so that's what's going on. So he's going to have his 2-week leave, just like in Iraq and Afghanistan. You say goodbye to your family, hoping it's not for the last time, and then you're going to get on that ship or that plane, and you're going to head on over.
Yeah.
So like I said, the first cav deployed by ship, but there was between August 19th and August 27th of 1965, an advance party of the 1st Cavalry Division went over on C-124s and C-130s to arrive at Nha Trang, Vietnam. And that was to kind of set things up to get everybody else. And it looks like Stewart was part of that because his records show his start of tour as August 20th, 1965. So just based on the dates, I think he went over with the advance party.
Okay.
He's going to have a good group of men with him, and then the rest of the division essentially is going to arrive piece by piece. He's part of the 12th Cav, so his whole unit's going to get over there. But again, that's very different than the most soldiers' Vietnam experience of coming over by yourself and getting assigned to a unit. He's going to be with guys he's trained with.
Yeah.
He's going to have been with guys he's been leading. So they're all going to know each other, which has its benefits. Majorly, right? In August of 1965, the 1st Cav is going to establish their main base camp, Camp Radcliffe near Ankh. And like I said, the engineers and the troops are literally clearing the wilderness by hand. So they're going in and they're taking bulldozers and they're clearing the jungle and they're setting up this area. Think about how fatiguing that is.
Oh, man.
And we're not in an area that's overwhelmed by the enemy, but the enemy could be anywhere. So you're going to have guys up on machine guns, guys up on rifles, guarding these guys on the tractors, pushing this stuff out while the guys are putting up the framework for the barracks and the buildings. It's a very interesting thing to think about. One of those
snakes,
things,
bugs, tigers,
bugs, mosquitoes, being tired with the humidity.
Tigers too, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
fairly rare, but there's
the pictures of
always
it.
there. Yeah, I'll post some. We've had plenty of them. I have pictures in my own collection of guys that have killed tigers.
Yeah,
but the snakes are bad enough. The mosquitoes are bad enough. The malaria is bad enough. The humidity is bad enough because these guys are going to be working long days and have sleepless nights because you don't just go to sleep. You have to pull your guard shift. So you're going to be miserable, and this is a whole new world for these guys.
Yeah.
And someone like Stewart, who's a lifer and a career soldier, he might expect this, but some of these other young kids that are just getting there.
Keeping the morale up.
Exactly.
There's all kinds of issues to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Very quickly on, though, in September, the Sky Troopers of the 1st Cavalry Division are going to start combat operations. And their first mission was Operation Gibraltar, which was to clear the area around the base. So they're going to start doing patrols and sweeps and looking for enemy while the base is still under construction, essentially.
Yeah.
These guys are going out trying to meet the enemy and trying to fight the enemy. So it's going to be trial by fire. It's going to be most of these guys' first combat. You'll have some Korean and World War II vets.
Does the enemy already have tunnels set up, or does that happen later?
Not to the extent that they're going to have later, but Vietnam's been at war for generations. They were fighting the French before the Americans. They were fighting the Japanese in World War II. They were fighting the Koreans. This is not their first foray. The American part of the Vietnam War is just a chapter in their long combat history.
Okay, so when they're talking about their military history, this isn't even
correct. I believe they call it the American War. Like, it's just a part of it. It would be like the way we talk about World War II with different, the Philippines and this and that.
The most fascinating part for me about Vietnam was the tunnel structures, man.
It's crazy.
It is full. You would talk about how they were cities, and I was just thinking like crawling little tunnels.
Right.
No, they're like full.
Yeah, they had in some of the camps or tunnels. They
kitchens,
had hospitals, and kitchens and barracks.
Yeah,
and then there's the smaller scale, just the spider holes. They can pop up out of anywhere. Someone can fire at you from a hut, go in a tunnel that's inside and pop up in the jungle 50 meters away or 200 meters away and have no weapon and you can't do anything about it.
I just wonder how that stuff was constructed, dude.
A long period of time and determination.
Yeah.
They were a very, very determined enemy, and they made it work.
Yeah.
How do you fight the most advanced technology in the world? You do it with Stone Age technology, essentially.
But I mean, you're in a rainforest, really, technically, right?
In
like
a lot
jungle.
of places.
How does I just think about like the water and the, you know what I mean? It's got to be funky down there. How does it stay? How's the structure stay up?
Oh, I'm sure they were
kind
miserable.
of a side note, but still, it just always trips me out.
Yeah, that shows how determined of an enemy they
are.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A demoralized enemy is not going to be living in wet tunnels and coming up to fight you. And But like you said, they've been fighting for hundreds of years. Grandfathers and grandsons are fighting,
and they're just as proud as anybody else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's this isn't new to them. Our troopers might be fresh and new, but it's not fresh and new to them. After Operation Gibraltar, they're going to take part in Operation Shiny Bayonet, is what they called it. And that's going to be the first brigade-sized air mobile action against the enemy. That's going to be the first time in probably history, but American history for sure, in the Army, of using these giant air mobile operations where we're going to push out into enemy territory, drop all these troops, and move forward. During this time, only light contact was achieved. The enemy was basically feeling us out. They would disperse and slip away when they're realizing the firepower wasn't worth it to fight, and they're going to move on. But they're going to gain this experience. The enemy's gaining our tactics, and we're gaining experience from them. So guys like Stewart, some of these other guys, they're becoming combat veterans. They're getting that trial by fire. They're having these, like we were just watching videos of, booby traps and explosions, and maybe one or two guys getting hit or taking that small arms fire, and kind of steeling yourself to what combat is. And
which is a whole nother fear, man. Like you talked about in the earlier wars, you're facing the enemy. That's terrifying. But man, we were watching these IED stuff, and it's like you're going forward, IED explodes, guy goes down. You got to treat him, and now you got to move forward.
Right.
Like, how do you overcome the fear of that?
And it can be so much worse than facing an enemy to your front. Because if you have a traditional enemy, you fight, the battle's over, you can relax a little. But if you're just on patrol constantly, you don't know what's going to explode. You don't know if you're going to step on a booby trap. You don't know if you're going to take rounds from a sniper. So you always have that anxiety. You're never going to sleep well. You're never going to be able to do anything.
I never really felt it until you showed me that video. And then I was like, they're like in that trench, and it's like, man, now they got to go forward.
Right. Now imagine seeing that in real time. Now imagine if that was me. They got my arms blown off, and I get medevac.
And you're my lifeline, and you're my buddy.
And you don't know if I'm alive or dead because you just saw me leave on the bird, and no one can tell you anything. And now you have to keep pushing forward.
Now I got a stranger next to me that I'm not as comfortable with.
And now you got somebody else that's yelling at you for some bullshit, and now you got the guy that you don't like, and you got, there's all kinds of things.
And it can change day to day like that.
And now your socks are soaking wet, and you have a festering sore on your ankle, and your girlfriend just sent you a letter that she doesn't want to be with you anymore, and now you're taking sniper fire, and now you're going into a village where you just got shot at from, and everybody's playing stupid like they don't know anything
Everybody's
that's
looking
going on.
shady.
That's where that frustration comes in, and that's how wear wars down on people.
Yeah.
Right? So with Stewart and his guys, this is going to be part of the Play Coup campaign. And they're just going to keep going because this is a year-long tour, essentially, right? So they're going to be the months are going to go by, and Stewart and his unit are going to see heavy fighting in multiple operations. They're going to be having small-scale ambushes. They're going to be on search and destroy. This is early war, and the first Cav went big, right? They're going out trying to pick fights. They're going out to initiate combat. So that's something in itself. If you're the point man just waiting to get shot at. So they're going to be becoming hardened combat veterans. They're going to be understanding how to fight, how to react to the enemy instinctively, rather than Donnie got shot, I'm going to freak out. Okay, Donnie got shot. I need to get down and return fire so I can save him, right? I can't save him by jumping on his body. I need to save him by knocking out the enemy. So they're going to be learning that. But according to the guys that served with Stewart, he always had a good attitude. He was a good leader. He wasn't a hard leader. He was a staff sergeant, but he wasn't just screaming at people. He led by example, which is one of those huge
very
things
common
in combat, right? Amongst the heroes, it is. There's plenty of bad soldiers, but we don't tend to talk about those on this show.
I'm just saying of the hero,
exactly,
the Medal of Honor recipients,
because that's usually the kind of person that's going to put someone else in front of them. One of his friends remembered them on one of their operations. They went to an old French plantation, and he and Jimmy were digging through the ground to dig up the peanuts and eat the peanuts and just sit there and eat. So one of those kind of humanizing things as well, to take yourself out of that anxiety of combat, to be back in, hey, just eating peanuts and chopping it up with a friend, essentially. And that friend, he said, he described Stewart as a good guy, a family man, and a friend. Because a lot of these other guys are 18, 19. Stewart's only 22, 23, but he's got 2 kids at home. He's married. He's a staff sergeant. He's been in the Army 5 or 6 years at this time, so he's an old man compared to these other guys.
Isn't that funny? Those stories always make me laugh.
Right.
Who's the famous one that tells the story about his
Sammy Davis.
grizzled old sergeant?
Yeah, Sammy Davis.
He was 24.
I just remember when I was in the Army, I was 18 when I went in, but guys, if you were 25 or older, you were an old man. And if you had life experience before you went in, it was crazy. You did what? You worked? That's crazy. What's it like?
Right.
Looking at someone with 2 kids in this time frame, it's going to be totally
and he's 22.
22-ish, yeah.
Wow.
So on May 6, 1966, they're going to take part, Stewart and his unit, the 12th Cav, are going to take part in Operation Crazy Horse. Now, just to dial you back, temperatures were about 110 degrees during this time, during this operation. And the average humidity in Vietnam during this time is 81%. 110 degrees, 81%. Wearing that helmet on your head, if they have the flak vest, wearing those flak vests, wearing that gear, wearing that boots,
You're sweaty, chafed,
Think about if you're from
miserable.
Washington or Oregon or
How do
something
you
like
sleep?
that too. You're miserable the whole time. That's the thing. You're just never fully awake and you're never fully asleep. Anytime you stop, guys are going to be resting their head and they're going to be nodding off because you're constantly exhausted. Add to that to the fear. We've talked about it on here before, those shows Naked and Afraid and everything. If you took the combat element away, these guys are still miserable.
Yeah.
You're still going to be walking 10 kilometers. You're still going to be carrying these heavy rucksacks. You're still going to be carrying
You're gonna quit
your
and go
weapons.
home.
You're going to be, if they could, they would,
Yeah.
right? They should make a reality show on that. Just put Vietnam gear on them, make them go hump 10 clicks and, carrying all this gear and give them the opportunity to quit when they can without the combat and see how many of them go through.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
Crossing those rivers, having to strip naked and check for leeches afterwards, finding some actual leeches, getting that trench foot and getting all those things. It would be miserable. Heavy loads of ammunition. If you don't bring it, you're not using it. If you want to eat, you have to bring your food. If you want to, shoot, you need to carry that ammo. They have the logbirds and everything, but they're going to be carrying a lot of ammunition. They're going to be carrying a lot of stuff. So
And they're eating just MREs and
sea rations, things like that. Yeah,
It's
it's going to
nasty
be
food.
not good food, greasy on your stomach, which is already miserable when you're walking. You're just constantly covered in sweat. You're very unhygienic. I'll leave it at that. But it's
Right.
it's not a good place to be. It's miserable for everybody, but like I said, Stewart's a staff sergeant, so he doesn't get to look out for himself first. He has to look out for his other guys. That's going to be his top priority, is making sure his guys are fed, his guys are
You think that's a little easier?
No.
No?
I can see why you would think it is because it takes your mind off
Yeah.
you, but it's a heavy burden in combat
bet.
because you have, the logistics
Your
of it,
decisions affect their life.
and these
yeah.
guys are 22, 23 years old, 19 years
man.
old, right? I have to tell someone to push left, to take the left flank. That decision that I make might cost someone their life, and I'm going to have to live that the rest
That's
of
the
their life.
part that
a
we always
huge
forget with these
burden.
stories, man. Think about yourself at 22.
Exactly.
And being responsible for other men. Like, I wouldn't trust myself, much less.
Yeah. And
Trusting me to lead
and
others.
It's easy to make a wrong decision.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
very easy.
There
to
is
make
no
a wrong
right decision, technically, right?
Even the right decision
Will get you killed.
get people killed because people are going to die. There's acceptable losses. If I have to have guys on a machine gun covering my flank, right? I have to have someone else push forward. Somebody's going to get killed. Somebody's mother's going to get a letter home, right? Somebody's
Because of your decision.
Some small child may never see their father again because I had to tell them to do something. That's a horrible, horrible burden. So in addition to the trench foot and the leeches and the miserable conditions and everything else. So that's
Yeah.
what this young guy's done. But he's a career Army soldier. He's been in 6 years. This is what he wants to make. So you have to imagine that he's accepting this and he's doing it. And by all accounts, he was a great leader. So he's doing a good job of it, right?
Yeah.
So on this particular mission, they're on a search and destroy mission. So they're going to be going into the jungle-covered hills, all the way through the elephant grass, into the heavy canopy jungle. Like you said, it's a rainforest. And search and destroy means you're looking for the enemy, which means they have the drop on you, right? When you find them, you're not going to find them sleeping. You're going to find them by getting shot at. You're going to find them.
That's how you
by-
identify them, right?
Pretty much, right? So you're already going to be reacting to their combat. So it's going to be very bad. So that's, God, the anxiety of that, it's just got to be awful.
And it's just a group of 18, 19-year-old kids.
Right, yeah. Just young guys and then whatever connection they have back to base that can give them that artillery support and everything else. During this time, our intelligence was showing us that the Viet Cong were massing in a natural corridor that they called the Oregon Trail. So we're getting intelligence. There's a ton of enemy over in this area, right? We have to move to that area. Naturally, okay, there's a danger. I want to get away from it, but these guys are infantry. So their job is, we have a huge enemy mass we received information that they were going to attack a special forces camp on May 19th, which was the birthday of Ho Chi Minh, the North Vietnamese leader. So we have this information that this little isolated special forces camp is going to get overrun. So we have to go stop them. So there's no doubt that you're going to get into combat.
And also, we've talked about this before. When you go play hide and go seek at your buddy's house,
Right.
he knows all the spots. He knows all the little areas to go,
That's
the
the
trails.
best way to describe it. The home field advantage, man.
And we're in a jungle, so
Right.
it's not like a home field advantage in open terrain, you know,
Right.
where you can kind of figure it out. The jungle is probably just nooks and crannies,
Yeah.
and they know everything.
They know they can take rounds at you and drop off back on a hillside and not find you. We have to push forward into it. We have to gain every inch by force. So it's
Yes.
a horrible, horrible thing. So Stewart and the rest of his unit, they're going to be airlifted into combat to go find and kill the enemy. So they're going to get on these helicopters, take that ride out into the unknown, drop down, hope they don't get attacked. And then when they move forward, they're going to try to engage the enemy if they haven't found them already. And again, by this time, he's 23 years old, and he's been in Vietnam for about 9 months. So he's nearing the end of his tour.
Right.
He's 23 years old. He's in charge of this group of men. They don't take contact on landing, so they're going to push out. Once you set up every night, though, you're going to have to set up defensive perimeters. So they're going to be setting up on the defensive position around the main part of their unit. So Stewart and his 5 men are going to be out on this position on the perimeter.
Yeah.
Just like they've been doing for 9 months. You never know when the enemy is going to hit, if it's going to be now or if it's going to be later. So that's going to prey on your mind as you're going to sleep. You don't all get to go to sleep at once. You're going to have people up, but everybody's going to be kind of alert because you know what's going on. Your nerves are getting to you. So everybody's going to be kind of anxious while you're manning that perimeter. And that's going to drain your energy because when it's time to move again, you didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night. What Stewart and his men didn't know, though, while they were sitting there kind of bedding down for the night, a whole North Vietnamese company was creeping through that heavy elephant grass, setting up a surprise attack.
Wow.
As is often the case, the enemy, when they're massing for a formation, they're not stupid. They know we're coming, so they're going to be massing for an attack on us as well. So Stewart and 5 guys are out on this perimeter, and there's a whole company that's creeping through the jungle, creeping through that elephant grass. So getting closer and closer with every step while Stewart and his guys are, maybe eating their sea rations or bedding down or talking about whatever they're going to be talking about. Or
and they're on watch?
Wires. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so
they're the first line of defense.
They're going to be that line of defense. They're going to be this portion of the bigger line is going to be taking this thrust of this attack. So when the Vietnamese do decide to attack, they're going to charge forward. They're going to charge forward with machine guns, rifles. There's going to be mortar rounds going off, and there's going to be rockets hitting these bunkers. The main thrust of this attack is going to be pitting Stewart and his 5 men against a platoon-size hostile force, which is 30, 40 guys, something like that, are going to be coming directly at them. And we're reacting, right? Our guys are going to be in their half-dug holes, and all of a sudden they're going to be taking rounds. They were caught off guard, and immediately 5 of these guys with Stewart were wounded. So 5 of the 6 men are immediately going to be cut down. So these guys that were out there preparing for combat, now they're going to be basically combat ineffective. They're going to be shot, they're going to be wounded, they're going to have shrapnel, they're going to be screaming. With all the other men wounded, this situation looks bad already, right? So Stewart's got to be looking around, looking at his squad, essentially, or his team, 5 guys, and they're all wounded. Some of them are going to be trying to fight back, but some of them are going to be trying to help each other. Some of them are going to be screaming, and now you have 30, 40 guys coming at you. Because like we talked about, the enemy doesn't just stop. It's not a video game where you push pause. Now they're pushing forward, and their goal is to kill you, and their goal is to overrun you and get to that main portion of the perimeter. Stewart's going to look around. All he has is his M16 rifle. He has a chance to run, but Stewart's responsible for these other guys. If he was a PFC or a private, that might be something to do to go back and get help. But Stewart's going to refuse to give in. He's going to immediately take control, and he's going to be virtually a one-man force fighting against 30 to 40 guys. So Stewart's immediately going to start delivering deadly accurate rifle fire. Stewart's going to start firing his rifle into the enemy. The enemy was
nighttime, right?
It's probably dusk dawn. I don't know exactly what time it is, but it's going to be low light. So these guys that move forward, you imagine the enemy, you see about 5, 6 guys, and you waste all of them, right? So you think you have this open corridor, and you start pushing, but Stewart's going to get in his defensive position, and he's going to start firing. Stewart's a trained career soldier, so every one of his rounds is hitting. He's not going to be firing wildly. He's going to be giving deadly accurate fire, and he's going to be able to put the enemy down. The enemy's trying to rush forward. They're going to be sweeping with machine gun. There's going to be mortars going off. There's going to be explosions, but Stewart's taking well-aimed shots, and each time he shoots, he's able to stop these guys and hold them off. The enemy keeps pushing, but Stewart was actually able to single-handedly stop this first wave of enemy attack. So 30 to 40 guys are coming at him. Stewart's delivering his accurate fire so well that these guys weren't able to take the perimeter, and he's actually going to protect these 5 guys.
By himself?
By himself. He's the only rifle firing at this time. He doesn't have a machine gun. He has his M16, and probably an A2 at that time, M16A1. I'm not
These stories are such a trip because you'd think that as soon as accurate fire's coming, there's one burst of fire. Like,
it's not that easy, but they're definitely going to shift their focus to him.
Yeah.
So he's drawing fire away from his wounded guys,
that's true,
so they can protect themselves, and he's delivering that ammo. Now you got to understand though, these are 20-round magazines too, so you only have 20 rounds, so you have to make these rounds count before you have to take a delay and reload and put them in. So Stewart's going to be using the cover of his bunker or his foxhole that he dug. He's going to be firing until he goes empty. He's going to drop down. He's going to reload a magazine. He's going to pop back up, and he's going to be putting these rounds on. If he doesn't, his men are going to die, right? Which is probably more important to him.
Right. You can imagine the mindset of protecting your men. It's probably a good focus to have because it's keeping you super on point.
But his determination was so fierce, and when you read the other guys' accounts of this battle, the words they use to describe him are just awesome. That's why I like this one so much. Almost more than what happened was the way these other guys looked at him. But his determination was so fierce, he single-handedly stopped this enemy attack.
Wow.
So now this enemy attack pauses, right? The enemy has to fall back to the jungle because they went through this elephant grass. They have to fall back so they can regroup, redistribute their ammunition, redistribute their weapons, reconfigure how they're going to go and push again. So now Stewart has a chance to save himself, right? Because there's no enemy they can see. They fell back. So Stewart's looking around, and he can run. He can fall back for reinforcements. He can fall back for a radio. He can fall back for
which would have been reasonable.
Would have been reasonable, but he's a staff sergeant, and he looking around, he's going to know that these guys need him. You can imagine them looking to him, right? These poor kids that are bleeding and wondering if they're ever going to see their family again, and they're looking to this staff sergeant that's probably covered in sweat by now and covered in blood and just, breathing and going, please don't leave us, and he's not going to leave them. But the other thing, and we've talked about this a couple times, is if you're standing there and the rounds start flying and you start fighting back, you're fighting on adrenaline and instinct, right?
Yep.
You're fighting to survive, and you're in that moment. You're almost like a wild animal that got caught. But when the enemy falls back, that adrenaline dump is going to hit you because your body flexed so much into you to keep you alive there. It can't maintain that, so you're going to feel that dump. Your hands are going to start shaking, right?
Yeah.
He just fought 40 guys by himself. His hands are going to start shaking. Your body's going to start getting cold. That sweat's going to overtake you, and you're going to almost, a lesser man might start hyperventilating, but not Stewart, right? Before he was fighting on instinct, and now he's fighting on determination and love for his men, essentially. So he's going to be covered with blood and grime. We were talking about it earlier. You're going to smell that cordite in the air. You're going to hear guys screaming. You're going to hear other guys.
Ears are ringing.
You're going to hear other guys treating each other, guys asking what to do, and he's going to be giving them commands because he's a staff sergeant, right? Stay in your hole, reload your magazine, whatever that's going to be. Get ready because they're coming again. They're coming again. So we need to stop them. There's going to be dead enemy out in front of him, very close to him too, right? Which is also unnerving to see guys you just killed.
Now the base he's defending, do they know it's coming now?
This isn't a base. They know it's coming. So we're going to be getting probed all over the line, but the main force is attacking him and his guys.
Yeah. Man.
So that's another thing. You don't know how big this attack is. You don't know what else is coming because we knew those troops were massed for the Special Forces camp. That could have been a diversion. They could be trying to swallow you up, right?
Yeah.
So we have to stay on our game. You can just imagine how scary that would be, though, right?
Terrifying.
Like you would just. Sometimes I don't understand how people didn't run or just freeze up, right? Every part of your human instinct is going to make you want to run away. And Stewart's got 2 little babies at home. Stewart's got 2 sons and a wife at home. Can you imagine? Again, when the combat starts, you're going to be firing. But when you have that break, because I've been there after combat, when you can assess what happened, and it's crazy, man. People will just start crying.
Hits.
Exactly. People will start crying hours after and just get that, like athletes, that adrenaline dump. Imagine thinking about your 2 sons at home and knowing the enemy's in front of you and knowing there's somewhat relative safety behind you if you get back there. But then he looks at his other guys and he knows that they need him.
They can't run.
They can't run because they're too wounded, and he can't get them back. And he's a professional soldier, so he knows that no matter what else happened, he's not going to leave his guys, and he doesn't. So, of course, after he looks around at the situation, the enemy's going to come back. So rather than fall back or rather than hunker down or rather than try to save himself, Stewart's going to stand his ground again. The enemy presses again, and the full force of this main attack is coming at him now, right? Because they know that they've wounded these 5 guys. We basically have 1 man. So now the enemy is funneling into this area where Stewart's at.
Yeah.
And they're charging. They're going to be screaming. They're going to be throwing grenades. They're going to be shouting. They're going to be firing at the wounded guys, but most of their attention is going to be focused on that lone rifle that's going to be firing at him. According to the witnesses, the wounded witnesses, they said, Stewart fought like a man possessed. He emptied magazine after magazine at the determined on-charging enemy and cut them down as they tried to dislodge him. Fought like a man possessed, right? You don't hear those words that often. You can almost imagine he's probably screaming back at him. His eyes are red. Got to be just drenched in sweat.
In the zone.
Nicked with blood from shrapnel and things that are going off or anything that's hitting him. In the zone, like those athletes. He's fighting like a man possessed, just raging. He is this force. It doesn't matter what they're throwing at him. It doesn't matter that he only has a 5.56 or a 2.23 of a civilian caliber rifle that he's putting rounds down, because that's enough, because they're not going to dislodge him.
Yeah.
And as long as he's there refusing to be dislodged, they are not going to kill these other guys, and they know that. So no matter how hard he's fighting, the enemy keeps getting closer and closer just by sheer force of numbers, right? So they start from 50 meters away to 40 meters away to 20 meters away, but now they're getting so close that they start throwing these grenades, right, which are indirect fire weapons. So he can fire all he wants, but when these grenades are coming over top, they're going to explode. And if they hit him, they're going to kill him, or they're going to knock him out, and they're going to kill these other guys. You haven't heard a grenade in real life, but a grenade is deafening. It's loud. It shakes your core, right? Even one that's not in a dangerous position, it will shake your body, and you're going to feel that. So you imagine grenades going off everywhere, bang, bang, while you're trying to fire, while you're hearing men scream, while you're
and they have a target to throw it at.
Exactly.
You know?
And if it gets down into your hole,
you're done.
You're going to be done. And if it gets into your buddy's holes, they're going to be done, right? Because he's trying to protect these wounded guys. A sane person would try to seek cover, right? So, if you're not well trained, you might just turn your back and run, which will get you killed. But Stewart has that discipline that he stays there. So despite the chaos, Stewart's going to hold his ground, and he's going to keep cutting the enemy down with these rifles. They're going to be trying to probe him and move in and flank to cover just to knock him out. By now, everyone's focused on him, which means they're not killing the other guys. So as they're getting closer, he's firing with his rifle and killing them. But that means the other side's getting closer, and they're throwing grenades. We've talked about this. A firecracker. Can you imagine grabbing a firecracker and trying to pick it up before it goes off?
No.
That's exactly what Stewart does. So as these grenades start coming in, Stewart starts swooping them up while he's firing and throwing them back. Every time a grenade comes in, Stewart grabs it and throws it back at the enemies, right? So instead of... can you just imagine
they're
risking your life to pick up a
to
grenade? Exactly. That means the enemy's close enough to throw an accurate grenade, and that means that timer's going off. That there's no loud tick, but you can almost imagine a tick, tick, tick. That's your life counting
like a hot potato, dude.
Every time you risk it and grab that could be the last thing you ever did. Because if you get your arm blown off and survive, they're going to kill you.
Yeah.
They're going to rush over and kill you. But Stewart is fighting like a man possessed. He's firing his rifle. He's killing the enemy as they come forward, and he's picking up those grenades and he's throwing them back. The Vietnamese continue their onslaught, and Stewart fought alone. He fought for hours until he ran out of ammunition. Okay? Eventually, Stewart ran out of ammunition, but he was able to force the Vietnamese back again. So rather than fall back to the command post, to fall back to safety, Stewart starts sprinting from foxhole to foxhole to all the wounded men, and he starts getting their ammunition so he can continue his fight.
Damn.
So Stewart is now crawling through the indirect fire, crawling through the mortars, crawling through this sporadic gunfire that's coming. Because you got to imagine, the Vietnamese are, the closer they get, the more they die. So they're probably hanging back a little bit too.
They're taking their time.
Maybe the Americans have a tunnel because there's no way that's just one guy. So they're giving them a little bit distance. But Stewart's able to collect all this ammunition from these wounded guys that can't fight and move back to his own position. The enemy continues to attack, and Stewart continues to fight. His citation says, far past the point of normal exhaustion, which aren't words they normally put in a citation. Stewart fought alone for 4 hours. For 4 hours, Stewart repelled 3 assaults single-handedly, annihilating the enemy as they approached.
Think about a 2-minute gunfight.
Think about a 2-minute gunfight. Think about a 5-minute jiu-jitsu roll. Think about a jog for 25 minutes. 4 hours of intense combat. And for those of you thinking, jiu-jitsu roll is a lot more strenuous than combat, think about the adrenaline dumps. Think about the physical force it takes to drop a magazine that's empty, to pick up a new one out of your pouch, to put it in. Just those simple
live grenades
movements.
coming in, and you're picking them up and throwing them.
Picking those grenades up and throwing them back, running from place to place.
Jiu-jitsu roll is a good way to put it with the adrenaline dump. If you've ever had an adrenaline dump in a tournament or something, that is you never felt that kind of exhaustion.
Right. And fear will do a hell of a thing to you.
Dude,
4 hours.
100%.
4 hours of rockets exploding over his head. 4 hours of hearing his buddies scream. 4 hours of intermittently having those thoughts of your wife and kids back home, wondering if you're ever going to see them again.
Do you even think you have those thoughts in the moment?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you have enough time. You do. So there's, like I said, sporadic combat that comes quick. You don't. You react. It'd be like if a dog bit you, you're going to react to that dog.
But if a
dog bites you and then it goes away and then you're trapped behind a fence and the dog's still coming at you and then it bites you again and then you're going to start thinking
you're having
about
the ebbs and flows of hope.
That's a really good way to put it. The ebbs and flows. It's just, and each ebb and each flow, he's going to have to steel himself again. He's
I made it. Oh, no, I didn't. I made it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm going to live.
And
no, I'm not.
I'm gonna live. But I imagine Stewart saying each time, you're not going to get my guys every time, right? Here we go again. Let's do this. Okay, I'm out of ammo.
He had to have been just determined to no end.
4 hours.
Yeah.
Far past the point of normal exhaustion. But because of his tenacious defense and because of how much ammo, the company position held, and finally a platoon arrived to reinforce them. So Jimmy Stewart, Vietnam hero Jimmy G. Stewart fought alone for 4 hours and was able to defend his men and defend this position.
And they survived?
And all 5 of those guys survived.
No
While the
way.
reinforcements came up, and you can imagine the cavalry coming in, right? This platoon coming. But the enemy's still out there. But Stewart had survived. He survived this fight, and he saved his men. And now these new guys are going to come up, and they're going to be taking the wounded back, and they're going to be taking the positions, and they're going to be pushing forward into the enemy. So as the enemy's retreating, these guys are going forward. So Stewart refuses to end the fight because these guys have wounded his men. So rather than falling back, or rather than staying with his men, Stewart leaps out of his foxhole, and he charges forward with this new reinforcing platoon. The cavalry troopers push forward, and they were eventually able to drive the enemy from the field. Stewart was last seen charging forward to meet the enemy to make them pay for what they had done to his friends. When the counterattack was over, Stewart's body was found in a shallow enemy hole where he had advanced to add his fire to that of the counterattacking platoon. 8 enemy dead were found around his immediate position, with evidence that 15 more had been dragged away. So again, it's just like, he's a man possessed, right? He fought for 4 hours by himself. He could have stopped. But when the enemy, or when our friendly troops pushed forward, he jumped up and joined them. He's already just fighting 4 hours, but God knows how long he's been awake, but he refused to quit. He refused to give back, so he pushed forward with them, and unfortunately, he was killed in action. The wounded guys that he gave his life to protect all survived. They all got to go home and see their families because of him.
Wow.
But unfortunately, his foreign-born wife, who is back at home at Fort Benning, is going to get that letter, and his little boys, both of them, are never going to see their dad again because he chose to give his life in support of his friends.
Man.
So that's the story of Jimmy G. Stewart. I'm not going to try on that middle name again, but on the morning of May 18th, 1966, his wife was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, which was presented to his wife in a ceremony. He was 23 years old at the time of his
Jesus.
death. 23 years old. And he's buried in Middleport, Ohio, and his name is on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial on panel 7E, row 84, which is going to be one of those early ones.
What a beast, man. Jesus.
Yeah, that's...
Totally, you want to jump back in time and go, just go back,
Yeah,
you already did it, but...
You don't want to stop him in his defense.
Imagine the confidence you build through a 4-hour fight that you win. You try to pull that guy off the line,
I imagine just a frenzy.
Me
more
too.
Than,
Me
like
too.
almost like a berserker.
Like, nah, you ain't getting away.
Exactly. Just frothing at the mouth. Ah, man, just 4 hours though.
Couldn't even imagine.
Do light exercise for 4 hours
No,
and then
you
get
can't.
up and do something.
Yeah.
Like I said, go for a jog at a 14-minute pace for
Go
4
hike.
hours.
Just go hike. Don't even run.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, you can just hike in the heat for 4 hours and you're dead.
Which adds to, like I said, the line in a citation, fighting like a man possessed. I've never seen that in any other Medal of Honor citation. Fighting like a man possessed. And that's what the eyewitness guys are saying. Like, you can just imagine him just, like, some guys are just calm and cold steel. Like, I feel like he was in a fury, just raging, just screaming at these guys, picking up grenades and throwing them back.
It reminds me of the Medal of Honor recipient we did where he's charging the hill. And
Clarence Craft?
Yeah.
There's a couple of them. We've done
where
so many now.
Yeah, he's charging up the line anyway, and he's taking it out single-handedly, and his guys are starting to follow behind him.
Right, yeah. Rudolph, or not Hernandez.
Smiley.
Yeah.
He got a great smile. He looks like his family member.
Diegas?
Yeah. Remember, didn't he get taken down in a tornado?
Yeah, tornado of fire,
Yeah.
as they said in the citation, on the Via Verde Trail.
Yeah.
All these guys, but it's... And like we say on every one of them, though, imagine the guy that's wounded in the foxhole.
That's witnessing
imagine
this.
You're 20 years old. You were setting up a defensive perimeter, and you got shot, and you went down, and you're in the worst panic of your life. And you might be crying, or you might be screaming, or you might be trying to get back
You
in
are
the fight.
definitely thinking about your mortality at that
Exactly.
point. You're thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to die right now.
Right.
You can only imagine the thoughts that come through your head at that moment. And you're witnessing this alpha male guy that you look up to. And I always think, even if the guy doesn't survive, if you don't survive, the last thought that they had was witnessing this heroism has got to lend them some kind of comfort in their last moments, right?
And it's not like
being
these guys
proud.
were Yeah, because it's not like these guys were cowards or they were scared.
No.
Some of them might have been trying to get into the fight too. But imagine, like I said, there's 6 of you. 5 of you go down, and they're spread out a little bit in their perimeter. But 5 of you go down, and the enemy's coming. And at first, you're only hearing one rifle, and you're thinking, "Man, we're screwed." And then you're realizing that rifle's holding them off. Like it shouldn't be able to do so. But the guy that's behind that, and like you said, they look up to him. He's been their squad leader for 9 months, maybe longer.
I always wonder, like, if those wounded end up dying, like in their last moments, are they thinking pride when they witness that?
Maybe.
You got to be thinking like, man, I got to die witnessing something awesome.
That's an interesting way to put it.
You know what I mean?
I'm glad I lived to serve with this guy. You'll hear people that die for each other say that. In We Were Soldiers, there's a scene where one of the lieutenants, I believe, as he's dying, his dying words are, "I'm proud or I'm glad that I got to die for my country." And the critics went nuts and just like, that was what a bunch of propaganda horseshit. But those are his recorded last words. That's
really?
what he actually said when he died.
Well, it's like in the old Spartan or the 300 movie where he goes, "It was an honor to die with you."
Right.
And he says, "Well, it was an honor to live with you." Yeah. I always think about those type of things.
Yeah.
That obviously is a cheesy line maybe in a movie, but there's got to be some of those thoughts.
Michael Thornton's a Navy SEAL.
Oh,
Vietnam
man,
veteran,
that story's
Medal of Honor.
amazing,
But
too.
as he was swimming out to sea, he had 2 wounded, one a SEAL and one a Vietnamese SEAL, strapped onto him who are both wounded. And Thornton was wounded himself. And as he's swimming out to sea, their bodies were wrapped around him so he could breaststroke. And he looked out and he saw the ship sailing away, and he knew he was going to die in the water. And he said his thoughts were, "If I'm going to die, what better place than to die in the arms of your comrades?"
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thought. Right?
Hell yeah.
Right? I think we'll end this one on that.
Yeah,
Kinda
good stuff,
sums that
man.
up. But
Good episode. Glad to be back, dude.
yeah, it is Memorial Day when we're filming this.
What a good one to do on
It'll
Memorial
be
Day.
a while after before we get it up, so you guys can kind of see how long it takes
Yeah.
us. But this Memorial Day, as we always, as you often hear, it's about the dead. It's about those who gave their life, who paid the ultimate sacrifice. Not everybody died heroically. Some people died unfortunately. Some people died tragically. But they all gave their life for their country. And this is what we choose to remember, and this is how we choose to remember it. Men like Jimmy Stewart, men like the other guys that were on the line, man in that defensive position that were killed. So
Yeah.
we really appreciate you guys listening. We quit the show. We came back, at least me, because we were getting some more comments and some more views, so I really appreciate that. Shout out Alexander Xavier, BJJ from Instagram. Messages me a lot. He's a soldier. He was overseas recently. I really appreciate your support, man.
Yes.
Appreciate all the comments. Steve Ellsworth, recent friend of mine. A lot of you guys that are commenting, is it Dad Lit on Instagram? We really appreciate that kind of stuff, guys. It shows that, you guys care for the effort that we put out.
It's resonating with you somehow.
Exactly, and that helps us because the whole goal of this is to share these guys' stories.
Not to get popular or famous, it's just to
Right.
get these stories out. And we both believe that these should be stories. These should be names that are etched in all of our minds.
How tragic is it that a Medal of Honor recipient is an unknown? You
It's
know what I
just
mean?
insane to me.
It's
every time we do one of these stories, I'm like, every one of these is a movie. Like,
Right.
and it really happened. Like, why aren't these guys celebrated and
Right.
known? It's just
in
crazy.
1966, Jimmy Stewart was fighting for over 4 hours and gave his life to defend guys that he served with and slept with and laid down with. He should be remembered just the same as the average infantryman should be remembered, or the average any soldier, sailor, airman, Coast Guard.
And people can't stop talking about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Right.
It's
so
just crazy.
Yeah. Let's focus on
So we're
what's
doing our
about.
part. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. You
Thanks
guys
for
are
commenting.
awesome. Thanks again.
Later.